let's move to the next presenter, Tang Kuan Xuan. We'll talk about professional development model for science teachers in iPad integration. So Tang, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Doctor. Mic test. All right, just to cross check, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, okay, thank you. So a very good afternoon to everyone. My name is Tang Kuan Xuan. I'm actually the presenter for paper ID PEN 20580. So I'm here to present about the professional development models for science teachers in the iPad integrations. So let's move on. So here's a quick guideline on what am I going to discuss. Overall, I have 5 items to discuss here. So I will start on my presentations with introduction. Here, I will be discussing about when iPad is introduced and what are the types of professional development supports that has been given to teachers throughout the iPad integrated. Next, I'll be discussing about the 3 types of theoretical framework that I will be used to build up the development model. Fourth, I'll be discussing about the methodology, whereby I'll be highlighting what is the research design that I've used and what is the product that I've made. Last but not least, I will actually discuss about the conclusions and recommendations, and I will end my presentations with Q&A session. So as you can see here, iPad is actually not a new teaching tool or is a new learning tool. It has been introduced, in fact, 19 years ago, which is in 2001, and many of the international schools has adopted the iPads into the teaching. Since the introduction, many schools has engaged different forms of professional development for the teachers to ensure there will be an effective teaching. For example, in terms of the support, the school has built up an iPad room for the teachers to conduct the iPad teaching. Some school has even purchased software or what we know as apps, the applications, and iPad for both the teachers and students to be used in the classroom. In terms of training, most of professional developments were focusing on the teaching and learning methodology. Yet, almost every year or in between the years, many teachers has reported whereby they could not integrate the iPad into the teaching successfully. Some were afraid, some were actually not confident, and some has doubt to what extent they have to apply the iPad into the classroom. Meanwhile, some teachers will also think that the supports and training were insufficient. Adding on, what was the reason behind? Some believe that all this professional development training, which has been provided, it could not meet the needs of the curriculum syllabus, whereby they think that most of the trainees were too focused on the use of the application. Taking science as an example, which also will be part of my sample, science is actually a subject that requires the installations of 2 elements, which is the thinking skills and the skills of 21st century. Under the context of Malaysian education, thinking skills is actually including the elements of critical thinking, creative thinking, and thinking strategy. Meanwhile, the departments of education in US believe that the 21st century should focus on the learning whereby it can be applied to the social life, economic developments, and knowledge management. Yet, many reports has been depicted that all these needs of the curriculum did not be met. Moving on, this will eventually lead to my interest of my study and writing, whereby I think that we should come up with a professional development that is very detailed, in fact, very specific, whereby it could guide the teachers on how, what, and why to incorporate iPads into the teachings. At the same time, this professional development should be able to meet the curriculum needs, whereby it should be specific to every different themes of the subject. Last but not least, I hope to come out with a professional development that could allow teachers to plan, implement, and evaluate their own teaching practices. And this must be catered based on their teaching syllabus. This is important because most of the reports has been highlighted whereby the teachers are confused whether if they are on the right track. Moving on, here I'll be defining the keywords that I'm using in my writing, whereby I have 2. So let's look at the first one, which is the iPad integrations. I've taken the definition from Constantine Fifth, which has been published in 2013, and Harris, Kotler, and Mishra, which has been published in 2009. I believe that iPad integration should be defined as a teaching tool or an approach in teaching whereby it should enhance teachings while meeting the needs of the curriculum. Overall, teachers should learn to explore the apps, applications of the iPad by themselves, and the design of the teaching lesson. It should be specifically designed by themselves. Moving on. Next, as you can see here, this is actually the definition of professional development. I would actually take the definitions of the professional development from the Apple company itself, whereby we believe that professional development is a hands-on workshop that is specifically made for every school, whereby they have two learning objectives. It is to ensure teachers are able to use the Apple products while teaching according to the needs of the curriculum. Overall, the Apple has structured the professional development catalog into 4 phases. As you can see in the last bullet, all right, what are the 4 phases? We have technological skills, curriculum, leading, and supporting. Therefore, I am interested to integrate 3 different theoretical frameworks into the Apple Professional Development Catalog. So the first one that you can see from the slide here is actually TPACK, which is the Technological, Pedagogy, and Content Knowledge Framework. So overall, just to have a quick guideline, a quick introduction about this model. This framework is actually to ensure teachers are able to use the technology to make teaching, to elicit prior knowledge, and also to solve problems and reduce the competitivity of the subject matter. This framework actually will need the integration of 3 elements, which is pedagogy, content, and technology. Moving on, we have SMR model. This model has been studied by many researchers. However, I have pinned down 3 researchers that has defined the model and is quite close to my interest of study. We believe that this SMR model, it should be a model whereby it allows teachers to understand and categorize their learning. At the same time, it will allow them to measure the degree of the integrations of the technology too, and this model should allow teachers to learn on how to design and evaluate the technology tool together with the Bloom taxonomy. If you are aware of that, Bloom taxonomy is actually a taxonomy whereby it will measure the thinking skills, which is needed in the science subject. So me, myself, personally think that the last scientist that I picked up, which is Strock, proposed by Strock in 2013, his models is quite close to what I'm interested to integrate it with, because he has combined the SMR model with the Bloom taxonomy together. So this model will allow me to test out the teacher's levels of integration together with the thinking skills. Last but not least, I have another framework to be integrated, that is TIM, Technological Integration Matrix. So this model is actually to allow teachers to ensure the teachings are being conducted continuously. At the same time, teachers need to remember to create a good learning environment, which will support the powerful learning. By definitions, powerful learning is actually the ability of the technology to facilitate different forms of teaching, which will involve active, collaborative, authentic, and goal-directed. Okay, under this framework, it has few category levels, which is entry, adaptations, infusion, and transformation. Overall, this framework is to describe the characteristics of learning from the aspect of technology. Moving on, I'm going to talk a little bit about my methodology. As you can see here, I have taken the design-based research as my methodology, whereby this research is actually a systematic and purposeful method. It requires the integrations of qualitative and quantitative studies methodology. So this approach will require a significant amount of literature review, theory generations, formative evaluations, data collections, and analysis. Overall, there is a possibility that I may need to formulate an alternative approach that emphasizes the improvements in research, theory, and practice. Why do I choose this methodology? Is because this concept actually are able to bridge the gaps between educational research and praxis. And at the same time, it is able to help teachers to improve their educational practices and also to contribute new elements to the existing theory. Last but not least, it is also able to implement solutions to the real world problem, which is also very important in the educational research. Moving on. So let's look at the proposed model that I've made. So as I explained, I have integrated 3 theoretical frameworks into the Apple Professional Development Catalog. So this Apple Professional Development Catalog, as I mentioned, it has 4 phases. So these 3 theoretical frameworks will be integrated in. As you can see at the bottom area, TPACK will be used to support the curriculum and technological skills workshop. SMMR model will be used to support the leading workshop, and TIM will be used to support the supporting workshop. As I mentioned earlier, my sample would be the secondary science teachers. As you can see here in the next slide, this is actually the proposed model that I've made, whereby if you look at the center, whereby it has an arrow, this is actually the structures of the Apple Professional Development Catalog, and I've integrated the 3 theoretical framework into every phases of the workshop. So if you can see, for the first 2 phases of the workshop, professional development, which is curriculum and technological, I have integrated the TPACK elements. Meanwhile, for the leading workshop, we will still need the TPACK framework together with the SMR model. This leading workshop will be led by the school leader management, while the curriculum focused workshop and technological will be actually carried out by the teachers themselves. Last but not least, supporting workshop will also continue to be conducted by the school management leader, whereby they should provide the continuous support to the teachers to guide them to ensure that they are on the right track. Moving on, last but not least, we have come to the final slide. This is actually about the conclusions and the recommendations of the research. So this research will benefit researchers, professional development trainers, schools, and the Ministry of Education. So this is actually to motivate the teachers on how to use the iPad for effective teachings, and it is also to allow the teachers to be able to create, to use, and access their own iPad lessons. This is important because all this while teachers do have concern on that. And then we also hope that this research are able to help the teachers to make an alarm call to all the policymakers, researchers, and education to gain and further insight into the iPad integrations for education, and also hopefully to be able to balance the integrations between technology and school. All right. So overall, what are the limitations of my study? All right, like I mentioned, this was be conducted as a design base. So I will start off the study in a single privatized schools. So definitely the data that will be produced are different. Let's say if this is applied to different schools and also to different participants. And I hope that in future, this research can be expanded to more different teams of the science subjects and also to other subjects as well, so that a better generalization data can be produced. So that is all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tan Kuan Shen.
Yes.
So I think there is no question.